Okay, the Presbytery will come to order, please. Good morning. Welcome back to the March meeting of the Presbytery of the Cascades. I'm Mike Gillespie, the moderator, and I recognize that not everybody was here yesterday, and so I want to take this opportunity to welcome any first-time elder commissioners or ministers who are with us today. If you happen to be here for the first time, please, I would invite you to stand and introduce yourself, or if somebody's brought you, if they could introduce you. So we'll first start with ruling elders. Any ruling elders that are with us today that were not with us yesterday, or who did not get introduced? Okay. Any ministers of Word and Sacrament that were not here yesterday that did not get introduced? All right, I guess you're all second day attenders then. Any people who need to be seated as corresponding members today that were not here yesterday? Either you all need more coffee or everybody was here yesterday, so that's great. All right. We apologize that there was a mix-up in the ministry celebration this morning, so we don't have a ministry celebration. I've been asked to make an announcement, and that is that there are 5 boxes of choir music available free to any church. They're downstairs in the book exchange area in Geneva Hall. So we would encourage any church that might want some choir music, good quality stuff, to go down and look at that during the break or before you leave today. So we're going to proceed. First item of business is an overture concerning the fossil-free initiative, and it will be presented by representatives from Southminster Presbyterian Church. The idea of the overture is to allow the lower councils, that is, synods and presbyteries, to bring business to the National Assembly. In order for an overture to be considered, it must be brought to the General Assembly by at least 2 presbyteries. Since we are providing a concurrence for an overture, and since it is March and the season of overturing and concurring is nearing a close, it is wise to consider the overture as it is without amending it and vote either to overture the assembly or not with the resolution. Will the representative of Southminster Presbyterian Church please come forward to present the resolution that is the proposed overture? Do we have that person here? Yes.
Is that a microphone?
And this mic.
So everybody's seen this, correct? This microphone?
No, use this one up here.
Way up top.
Yeah, way up top.
Okay.
And if you remember from yesterday, you got to put your mouth right, like
The rock star. I'm John Scheck. I'm pastor, teaching elder at Southminster Presbyterian Church in Beaverton. I really don't have a speech plan. I think this is just going to be easy. The Cascades Presbytery 2 years ago, I believe it was, we didn't count because we don't do that, but I think it was almost unanimous, sending a similar resolution, concurring to go to the General Assembly. This is very similar language, and actually we had a little bit of discussion at our congregation about the language itself, but we all know that at the end of the day, it goes to all those committees and it gets a lot changed anyway. So there may be some particularities that we may look at here and say, gosh, it should be, more specific, or it should be more general, or it should be this or that. But really, I think the impetus for us here is to, I almost said co-conspire, but it's concur with the other 30-some presbyteries, and that gets us more time on the docket at General Assembly, as well as allowing Cascades to have the people, the representatives to go and make the case there. So I certainly don't need to talk to you about the apocalypse. I would advise you to read David Ray Griffin's book, Unprecedented. It's probably the best book out there that I've seen in the last few years about climate change and the choices that we have to make now. Reverend Harry said, "What's it mean to follow Jesus?" I think this is a key part in what we do in terms of care for Earth. And I don't mean to say that in a way of trying to dictate on people's politics what it means to follow Jesus, but I do think that this is a witness to Earth care and to humanity. So I would carefully consider and hope that you will vote to concur with this overture. Thanks.
Thank you, John. So we probably need the overture. Is it on a slide or on several slides? And I'm wondering if we should have it read aloud? No? Okay. So you're familiar enough with it that you're ready to vote? Is there any discussion on this motion? Yes?
My name is Phyllis Hart. I'm honorably retired, but I'm actually speaking to you as Hannah Gronke. Those of you who were here 2 years ago heard a very impassioned speech from an elder from the Central Point Presbytery Church who was at Reed College, asking you to pass this for her children and her grandchildren. She was 20 at the time. She would be here today, but she's in Moldova with the Peace Corps. So she would say to you, we were all at the General Assembly 2016, stunned that the General Assembly did not adopt it that year. So we are hoping that this Presbytery will send it on to GA again, and that this year it will be successful to go through. It's, many of you know, it's mainly symbolic. The money that we have invested is not going to actually hurt any of the companies, but it's symbolic of what we're saying about the future. I know people are really looking at us and depending on us. I'm for the overture.
Thank you, Phyllis. Someone else like to speak either for or against? You ready to vote? All in favor of this overture, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Okay, carries. Now, Mr. Clerk, where are we on the overture?
I invite Paul Bell's Templeman, stated clerk. I invite the Reverend Dong Beck to join me up here, if you would. Our next item of business is an overture that we were hoping to concur on with Eastern Korean Presbytery, and they're meeting next week to vote on it. And we know the season for overtures is short. There have been new developments in the relationships on the Korean Peninsula, is my understanding, and I'm not exactly sure. We might want to take a brief recess for a moment so I can confer with
So shall we take
Beck.
5-minute break?
Please.
Okay, 5-minute break, please. Okay, so it looks like we are ready to present this overture. Comes from Calvary Korean Presbyterian Church and concerns the welfare of defectors from North Korea.
I apologize for allowing you to have a good time on a break. We did have to, I had to consult with Calvary Korean about their overture and ways in which it looks like there will be some changes made. So what they propose is the following overture, that we would overture the General Assembly to do three things. To encourage every church in the PCUSA to pray at least one time a year for North Korean victims of human rights. 2, prepare for possible reunification of the Korean Peninsula by reviewing the list of all properties owned by the Presbyterian Church in North Korea before the war. And 3, to encourage PCUSA presbyteries that are interested in this issue to work together with the National Caucus of Korean Presbyterian Churches. So that's the overture, and I apologize for the change. I'll leave that for this body to determine what they want to do.
Okay, so are there questions or discussion of this overture? Are you going to sing karaoke for our friends?
Barbara Campbell, interim pastor at Covenant Gresham right now. And I didn't come up here to do a mic drop. So a couple questions. Do they have 2 concurring presbyters? Is that where we are? And they're just asking for more, or would we be the second?
At this point, they are meeting next week. So there are no concurrences at this point.
And
So
we don't have, but
we might be one of 2, to get the 2 overtures that are the same, that would be the concurrence.
okay.
That's a possibility. Strong.
And time-wise, do they have time after we meet to get other concurrence? I mean,
So yes, there would still be time. The timeline is it has to be postmarked by May 2nd, 2018. So there is some time, but not a lot.
okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions? Discussion? Statements for or against?
Mark Fry, Minister Woods. I have a question about item 2.
Okay.
It says list of all presbyteries owned by the Presbyterian Church. Which Presbyterian church are we talking about?
I don't have an answer for that.
PCUSA is saying.
So PCUSA properties that were owned at that time.
It would be the predecessor congregation, predecessor denominations, because of course the PCUSA was not in existence at that time. But this is not dissimilar to the conversations that we've had regarding Cuba and the situation of our sisters and brothers in Cuba who were underneath or were overseen by a presbytery in New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. So this is similar to what we've done in other areas of conflict, as far as I know.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Please remember to introduce yourself because not everybody knows everybody here.
Associate Pastor, Moreland Presbyterian Church. I would just like to say that if our Korean congregation, Associate Pastor of Moreland Presbyterian Joshua Dunham, just would like to say that if our Korean congregations are in support of this overture, I think it would be very, very wonderful for us to show a sign of solidarity with those Korean congregations within our presbytery. So I am in support of this in knowledge of, in hope that this is supported by our Korean congregations.
Thank you. Other statements or questions? Are you ready to vote? Yes. All in favor of this overture, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. The overture passes. We would now be normally at a break, but you've just had a break, and we're early. And so I'm wondering if the Board of Trustees is prepared to present their report. Did you have something else you needed to?
Paul Bell's Templeman, not with the Board of Trustees, though I staff it. The Board of Trustees report is in the background papers. They had no business to report today. And also, the clerk, this is a typo, actually, I would like the nominating committee to bring a short report now, if that's okay.
Sure.
You're the
Absolutely.
authorizer.
What, yeah.
Good morning. Hi. Kristen Hamilton Sutherland. I'm the chair of our nominating committee here for the Presbytery, and I do have a very short report for you. I'm here to announce that the nominating committee has a meeting coming up on March 21st. And you might be wondering, since many of you are not on the nominating committee, why you should put that on your calendar. But I am here to invite you to collaborate with us in coming up with the best possible slate of nominees and candidates for the positions that are open in our presbytery. Our committee takes our work seriously. We work very hard with intentionality and faithfulness to the task that you have given us, but we're a small group of people, and if we can invite you all to participate with us in finding folks to do the work together of this presbytery, we believe that will strengthen and deepen the work that we can do together. So I'm asking you for 5 minutes of your time. Look, is it up on the board? In your background papers, there's 2 pieces of paper from the nominating committee. One is information about the different positions coming up, and another is a brief description of all of our committees and the tasks and work that they do. If you could just take 5 minutes and look those over, think about who you know who might be able to serve in those capacities. Maybe it's the person in the mirror. Maybe it's someone in your community. And you can self-refer to the committee. You can email our clerk and let him know. And that would really help us out. It would deepen our work. It would strengthen the diversity and the representation within this community. One note too, just referring yourself doesn't mean you said yes to serve. It just means you might get a phone call and be asked to consider it. So we would really appreciate your help, your collaboration, and just 5 minutes of your time. Anything else?
Well, if you're in the background papers, it would be 1K.
Oh, thank you.
Nominating committee report.
It's up on the board. Thank you. I can't see the board, so thank you. That's all. Short report, just like it said.
Well, that's the committee description. There's the meeting right there.
So is there a page number for
Do you have the page?
1K. In your background papers, it's 1K. 65? Page 65. And 66.
Thank you. Thank you ahead of time for your consideration and your help and your collaboration. This concludes my report.
Okay, do you want them to take 5 minutes?
If they have 5 minutes, if you have 5 minutes, I was just thinking of an individual 5 minutes, but
I have 5 minutes. Do you have 5 minutes?
that would be okay.
Okay, let's take at least a few minutes to look over these and see if you would like to volunteer or suggest a name. And then I see we're collecting some of the evaluations. Maybe if there are, is there a place where they could, a place where they can get these to you? How would that work?
So there is actually on the Presbytery website a portal that you can go through for referring. You can also email myself as the chair, and I think everyone's listed in the directory, or our clerk, or passing a note down the pew works.
Okay. So maybe if you don't want to go through the email route and you have a name today, you could just leave it up on the clerk's table before you leave the meeting today. It's an idea. Okay. Thank you for your report. Well, I believe that, I know you've already had kind of breaks, but would be time for a break.
I urge you to take a break.
So we're going to take a break. Let's be back here by 11 o'clock. 15 minutes approximately, 17 minutes, something like that. Please take your seats if you will. We move next to the report of personnel administration and call on Robin Garvin, our chair of that commission.
Good morning, everyone. Again, Robin Garvin. I am a minister member of the Presbytery and also chair of personnel and administration. So we have a couple of acknowledgments this morning, as well as just a little bit of business to report to you. But how about we'll do bookends? We'll start with an acknowledgement and end with one. So me taking over as chair has to do with someone else stepping aside. And those of you that have attended Presbytery before probably have seen my colleague John Berniger, who is our former chair and had actually chaired in times past as well. He has stepped aside for family reasons, but I believe is here today, and we want to acknowledge his service as the chair of personnel administration. So John, if you would stand so we can thank you. I will not try to fill your shoes, but I'll try to do my best. Okay. So there's one acknowledgement. We'll get to another in a moment, but just some actions to report to you at this time, and they largely have to do with where we find ourselves still in the midst of transition here in the Presbytery. So let me begin by just telling you that we, as a committee, have decided to extend for up to 6 months during this time of transition the contract of our interim communications coordinator, that's Steve Parker, who does such a great job for us. And so we are extending his contract for up to 6 months. We're still getting organized in terms of a search for a permanent individual for that position, but there was desire amongst the committee to wait until our advocate for congregations and clergy was on board so that that person could be a part of that search. And now with Clark on board, I imagine in short order, drawing upon Hugh's considerable corporate memory, experiences, and expertise. Finally, what we came down to is having Hugh available kind of in an on-call format up to 80 hours to assist with Clark's transition into this new position. And Hugh has graciously agreed to do that, and so it will be on up to 80 hours on an on-call basis. And lastly, another bit of information to report to you that is important in this transition plan. You may remember that in the original staff transition plan, we had some positions that would be newly created, that of a consultant or coach, if you will, for congregational discernment in the various quadrants of our presbytery. That is still in discussion format, and the committee is working hard on that and creating job descriptions for those positions. So I imagine I'll have more to report to you at meetings to come about that. So that's all the business, but now I said that we would have one final recognition and appreciation time, and to that end I would love to invite my colleague, our friend, Hugh Anderson, to come and join me here at front. myself served as a transitional pastor in a couple of different domains. It's pretty amazing the job description that you're handed and then what it actually turns out to be all be about. Can I just say, having been involved in the process that led to our inviting Hugh Anderson to come back after his time away to help us as an interim co-executive presbyter, we were greatly in need of a steadying hand and capable leadership, wise head, kind heart, and we got all of that and more in Hugh Anderson. I think our original, it'll just be a few months, Hugh, really? Okay. See, he even knows there was a number attached, but so it turned out to be a bit more than 4 months, but gosh, could we have come up with more capable, amazing person than Hugh Anderson? I don't think so. And in reading some of your emails to Hugh, it was great after he finally was able to step away from that position. He announced that to the various commissions on ministry, and the Committee on Preparation for Ministry, and it was just fun reading your various email tributes to him because this is an amazing guy who has served us so well in so many different capacities. But today, I want us to really recognize his role as the interim co-executive presbyter during this time of growth and transition for us and living into this new staffing design. And would you join me in thanking Hugh Anderson? Very appropriate, and I have the privilege of presenting to you, Hugh, a gift from the Presbyter. It is a calligraphed calligraphy of "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." So, very lovely, crafted by a local artisan and given with love to you, Hugh. So, thank you.
I want to thank you all for your appreciation, but also for your working together in the life of this presbytery. I know many of you are familiar with Frederick Buechner's comment about what a call is, where your greatest joy and the world's greatest need come together. And I feel that has been the case here with me, especially in the last 18 months. I wasn't born yesterday when they said 4 months. I knew it would be more than 4 months. But when Tina and I came back from China, not knowing yet what God had in store for us, it really was a mutual call of our needs and our joys, because it gave me an opportunity to continue to serve in a place that I love to serve. And when I came back from China, as I said before I went to China, I'm too young to retire. But now I am old enough to retire. And have requested retirement, and COM South will act on it later. But as of April 1st, I will be retired. April 1st is Easter, a new day, new beginning, a new opportunity, new life, so I'm excited about that. But Tina also said April 1st is April Fool's Day. And so what does that mean? Who knows? I want to commend Tina, who's standing there in the background taking pictures of this, as a true stalwart and someone who has been supportive not only in these last 18 months, but these last 40 years that I have served in ministry. John Mahan calls her Saint Tina, because of the many things she has had. But she is an amazing woman, having developed a career of her own with her gifts and talents and her degree in music education as a musician. She has also been the one that holds the home front down, so that when I say, well, dear, I have to go up to Portland for 4 days of meetings, she says, okay, and she's there holding down the fort. She's there taking care of our 3 sons as they were growing up. So I want to appreciate her for all of her ministry in the many different ways over all these years. And I want to thank you all for working together as we glorify God and advance God's kingdom, God's realm in this portion of the world. Thank you so much.
Mr. Moderator, this concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Now we have, next on the agenda, I would invite Tracy Bullis to come forward. And we have the report of the Administrative Commission for the Cooper Mountain Presbyterian Fellowship.
Hello, I'm Tracy Bullis. I'm the pastor of Tualatin Plains Presbyterian Church that's locally known as the Old Scotch Church in Hillsboro, Oregon. I've been the COM liaison for Cooper Mountain since July of 2014, and then I facilitated the Administrative Commission over these it's been less than a year. The rationale and motions for the Administrative Commission for the dissolution of Cooper Mountain Presbyterian Fellowship are in your background papers and will be up shortly. These are standard motions. I don't know if Rob Christ and Mark Rainey are here. They are the other 2 folks on the Administrative Commission, but they would echo my sentiment that it has been really just a pleasure to work with this session and congregation. I give a lot of credit for that session's focus to their last full-time called and installed pastor, Scott Peterson. He modeled integrity in ministry because he was intent on staying only until he was called to be pastor of that congregation, not stay too long. And he was faithful about leaving them time and resources to discern their future separate from his own call. I also want to give thanks for Paulette Mixon-Weller, who worked hard at her 20 hours a week to guide and pray for and preach to Cooper Mountain as they sorted through their journey. And then she engaged her wonderful chaplaincy skills as the congregation grieved the difficulty of so many changes so fast. And I'd like to give thanks to the network of pastors and congregations who walked beside Cooper Mountain from that first idea of a new church development. Mark Fry, the founding pastor of Cooper Mountain, is here, and all of those who walked with them as they grew and shifted and flourished, and then in these last few years of needing to sort through their own sense of call for the season of ministry that they had in Southern Aloha. I want to tell you, your congregation will be lucky, will be blessed, if you receive some of these members of Cooper Mountain into your own congregation. They will carry forth their love of God and their service of others into your community of faith. In fact, the session has already seeded a couple of ministries in other churches with the last of their finances to make sure that they are being fruitful as they go far and wide and spread as the faithful Christians that they are. So now I'd like to invite Doug Hoy, who is an elder at Cooper Mountain. He's not currently serving on session, but he will review their story before we act on these motions.
Oh, that's wireless. Okay, good. I have a slide presentation to go with my remarks this morning, but I can't see it where I'm up here. So if I got out of sequence, it would be annoying. I may step down in a minute if I can't see it. Again, thank you, Tracy, for your remarks. They duplicate a little bit about what I wrote before I showed up this morning. My name is Doug Hoy. I'm a ruling elder of Cooper Mountain Presbyterian Fellowship, and though I'm not presently serving on the session, it truly is my honor and privilege to speak on behalf of the session and the congregation this morning to all of you today. My wife Cheryl and I have been involved been members since 1993, and for 25 years have been actively involved in many areas of lay ministry. We have witnessed firsthand the highs and lows of starting and sustaining a new church development, which has been an awesome experience at times and also a very humbling experience at times. And of course Tracy, who's the teaching elder and pastor at Old Scotch Church. Our current session active elders are Ann Torkelson, who's here with us today, John England, George Ellis, who's also here today, Neil Davis, and Donna Manning. Our halftime interim pastor, as mentioned, has been Paulette Mixon-Weller. And our treasurer of the past 2 years has been Tracy Frericks. She's also been instrumental in assisting with the many financial and administrative tasks involved in closing a church. And also on hand today is Kate England, who's been our moderator of the deacons. And my remarks this morning about the deacon ministry at Cooper Mountain were made in large part with her help. And I appreciate that, and it's been trying for her for other reasons. We need to acknowledge the amazing support of our neighboring churches who have gone out of their way to pray for us, to help us at times of need, and generally have been amazing in their unflinching support. This has included Jeff Sievert, who's here this morning, and the entire Reedville congregation, Old Scotch, 12th and Plains Presbyterian Church, the entire congregation there, Pastor Larry and Pastor Chad, and the entire Cross Creek Bible Church, congregation in Aloha, and the congregation of Emmanuel Presbyterian Church. As a result of our need to disperse our equipment, our furniture, our supplies, we have been able to significantly bless the congregations of John Knox Presbyterian in Kaiser, Reedville Presbyterian in Aloha, Multnomah Presbyterian in Portland, Old Scotch, 12th and Plains Presbyterian in Hillsborough, Creston Kenilworth Presbyterian Church in Portland, and the Portland Community Church and Calvary Chapel Community Church. Other churches and communities of faith throughout the Portland metro area has also been praying for us during these past 2 years, and some we don't even know about. If you have been among that group, we thank you so much. It really meant a lot to all of us and gave us hope during trying times. So, the idea of creating a new congregation in an underserved community goes way back into the late 80s, but it wasn't until the formation of the steering committee in January of 1990 that action began to take place for the Cooper Mountain community. The steering committee of the Cooper Mountain New Church Development was Jim Blanchard, Darrell Hall, Julie Hewson, Bill Jackson, Rael Squire, Mary Lou Thomas, and Paul Tripp. In the fall and early winter of 1990, they interviewed several pastor candidates, but were pretty clear on their finalists early on. Let's see if I got this. You got Mark up there? Okay. At the January 28, 1991 meeting, they decided on and then called the Reverend Mark Fry, who was living in Laverne, California at the time. In Mark's words, he was to, quote, understand and be responsible for everything associated with creating a new ministry for the Cooper Mountain community. After arriving in May 1991, he and his wife, Christy, began praying and worshiping in their home with a small group of early church members. The church motto developed soon afterward was, touching the heart of Washington County with Christ's love. That fall, we began worshiping in our first venue, Cooper Mountain Elementary School. This fit well with the name of the new organization, which was created to fit the targeted geographical community of Cooper Mountain. We worshiped together there for 4.5 years. We officially chartered with approximately 100 members on January 14th, 1996. The ceremony was held at Valley Presbyterian, and it was Reverend Rebecca Hazen. Let's see if I got her up there.
No, I can move forward.
There we go. She's up there on the left. And she served as interim pastor from 2004 through 2005. And then Pastor Scott Peterson, as was mentioned earlier, from 2005 through 2016. Finally, Paulette Mixon Weller has been our interim pastor since the beginning of January of 2017. We appreciated each and every one of these individuals for their gifts and leadership. Please join me in extending thanks one more time for their service. Financially, the church was supported during the first 5 years by a grant from the General Assembly administered through the Presbytery. In addition, Presbytery contributed funds to purchase a site for a future building on Farmington Road in Aloha, and Valley Presbyterian generously contributed as well. It was important to manage and maintain this site for tax deferment reasons by planting evergreen trees on an almost yearly basis. But financial support wasn't the only part of being supported as a new organization. Presbytery staff also supported us with wise guidance throughout our ministry. This included participating during our charter service in 1996, discussing matters of property development and purchase in 1996 through 1998, and helping us during the financially stressful times of 2003 through 2005. Presbytery Executive Jack Hodges came alongside us in 2004 through 2005 during a low period and was so very encouraging. Words of appreciation cannot be complete without recognizing his contribution during this period. In 2010, we returned to the process of property development by collaborating with the YMCA of Columbia, Willamette in creating a new vision for the site. Presbytery was with us then too. This was very much appreciated. Unfortunately, we were never able to realize the vision of building a church on this property. When I began to prepare my remarks for this morning's presentation, I wanted to include a few words about our legacy as an organization. I began to realize how difficult a task this was. After just a few minutes of reflection, no words can fully capture the impact. As we sought to touch the heart of Washington County with Christ's love, as well as honor the Great Commission to go and make disciples, many children and adults were baptized and grew in their faith. Part of our Christian growth was expressed by involvement in missionary causes and specific missionaries. We began a long-lasting relationship supporting Rich Gardner, who was an African missionary. We generously gave what we could every year since that relationship started back in 2000. He taught us so much about the sacrificial commitment it takes to be in a different country teaching others about Jesus in non-native languages. Rich has impacted thousands of lives and brought thousands of believers into a relationship with Jesus. We also participated in many youth and intergenerational mission trips. From the very beginning, we had an active Christian education ministry serving preschool all the way through high school. The lack of our own church building did not limit us as early on, as we hosted backyard vacation Bible school and summer adventure clubs for kids. Women's ministry has always been a vital part of our church life. Big brothers, big sisters of Portland. 5 men made a decision to take on the awesome responsibility of being a big brother to a boy of a fatherless family in our community. Men who wanted to participate in other ways contributed to service projects supporting widows and single women in the neighborhood of our church, many of which were not part of our congregation. This program was modeled after Herb Reese's New Commandment Ministries out of Colorado. Community outreach has also been a cornerstone of our ministry. Supporting Hazeldale Elementary School across the street from our lease building was a natural extension of this ministry focus. This began in 2009 under the leadership of Trevor Sheffels, who was our outreach elder at the time, along with Pastor Scott Peterson, and continues to this day. Our involvement included purchasing and distributing back-to-school supplies. Make sure we're on the right slide here.
I think it's the next one.
There we go. Helping to organize and staff the back-to-school kickoff event. That's what we're seeing here. Volunteering in classrooms. Starting and helping to staff a smart reading program, and hosting a Santa breakfast in December. In the summer of 2014, we developed, planned, and staffed a new program called Summer Hawks, which dovetailed with the school district's lunch program. Here is a short video of that 8-week program. Would you go ahead and launch that? 2015, Korean Mountain Presbyterian Fellowship was recognized by the Beaverton School District for the entire program of outreach to Hazeldale. Elder John England continues to champion this effort, and in spite of the fact the church is no longer an entity, the community support of the school will likely continue because of John and others' Christ-centered desire to support the community in which we live. From the very beginning of church life, we have had a very organized and impactful deacon ministry. As we have been commanded to love one another as Christ loved us, the deacons showed Christ's love in many ways over the years. Benevolence within our congregation took on many forms and was dynamic, responding to the needs as we grew and as we aged. Some examples of this benevolence include placing a rose on the Lord's table when a baby was born and providing meals for the new family. Visiting and delivering flowers to those in the hospital or to shut-ins. Providing meals to those recovering from illness or surgery. Sending cards to college students and those enlisted in the military. Providing discreet financial assistance to those in need within our congregation. Providing grief support to members who lost loved ones and helping to organize memorial services and receptions. They also joyfully celebrate birthdays, weddings, and other family blessings. The deacons also lived the mission of Korean Mountain Presbyterian Fellowship beyond our doors. They collected and delivered food to the Oregon Food Bank. When the deacon funds exceeded a certain point, they gave financial support to the food bank as well as to Care to Share. They were also responsive to individual needs within our community. A high school student was walking down 185th in Beaverton one day when a driver experienced a medical event, resulting in the loss of control of his car. Tragically, the student was killed. He was connected to several of our youth who had gone to middle school with him. Our deacons reached out and were able to make a donation to help cover the funeral costs for the grieving family. In another incident, one of our youth who was attending Seattle University lost a classmate in a senseless school shooting. That young man was from Beaverton, as well as his family started a foundation to raise awareness and support for those with mental illness, which the shooter suffered from. Our deacons responded by sending financial support to the foundation. The deacons were able to meet these and other needs through the faithful and generous financial support of the congregation. Even after the announcement that we would close our doors, members continued to give to the work of the deacons. This exemplifies the kind of love and trust that our congregation had for God's plan to touch the heart of Washington County. We give praise, glory, and honor to the Lord for the privilege of helping others. A distinguishing characteristic of our church was the close family-like relationships that developed among our members. Visitors often commented about how friendly and welcoming we were. We took responsibility for caring for one another, especially through prayer. We loved each other and expressed that through participation in our choir, praise band, and potlucks, beach outings, picnics, and, of course, our summer and camping trips. Those memories will last a lifetime for those participants. As our former church members and participants scatter throughout the community, we expect our impact to continue as they become involved. God is great all the time. Back to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. Okay, so now we have a motion coming from the Administrative Commission. Isn't that? We are to that point.
So there are 6 motions in your background papers. I'm assuming you have read those, and the commission would move those.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion or questions? All right, all in favor of these? These are all moved in together. Please say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries. And we now invite representatives of the Cooper Mountain congregation to come forward as we remember and celebrate their ministry. Yeah, maybe right.
So I have the honor to pray, and then we will sing one of Cooper Mountain's favorite songs. And Cynthia O'Brien, who served in an interim pastor capacity at Cooper Mountain also, so it means it's very meaningful that it's Cynthia playing, will be singing Go in Peace. So please pray with me. God of hope, God of wilderness wanderings and resurrection, we thank you for Cooper Mountain Presbyterian Fellowship. We thank you for the wonderful life that it has brought, God. We thank you for all the work that you've done through Cooper Mountain, and we thank you that that work will continue. I pray that you strengthen the churches here today, God. Lord, I thank you for the witness of Cooper Mountain in my own life. They always seek to give you glory and to figure out what you're doing. God, I pray for each member that you will help them to find a home. I pray for this presbytery that they will welcome and nurture the wonderful people of this congregation. And God, we give you all the glory, and we trust you, and we praise your name. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Should be words up here. And he said, go in peace and love one another as I first loved you. Proclaim to all who hear the good news of my coming. Keep faith in all you do. Keep faith in all you do. And he said, go in peace in all you do. Amen.
Mr. Moderator, that concludes our report from the AC.
Thank you very much. And we also need a motion to dissolve the Administrative Commission, I believe. Not yet? Okay. Not yet. Is that-
When a congregation dissolves, the Administrative Commission has been authorized to do some work in closing up the congregation and winding down the affairs. So that's why we take a few months before we dissolve the Administrative Commission. Hopefully it will be at the June meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. So we did not have new business, correct?
Correct.
So we're now to the State Clerks Report, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Clark?
It's always helpful when the clerk notifies the clerk that the report is coming up, so I was aware. I want to thank you all for being here at this meeting this weekend. I appreciate your indulgence as we worked with the business of this meeting, trying to accomplish it in ways that were clear, which meant we took some recesses at different times. I hope you appreciated that. I also am very grateful for the staff and the members at First Presbyterian Church Portland for all their work in putting this meeting together. And I have to confess that I made the job a bit more challenging for them because as I would have been preparing and being an interface with them about the needs and requirements for this meeting, I was working on another meeting in Eugene a few weeks ago. So there were a few things that it was like, oh, by the way, I should have told you this 2 weeks ago, but here's what you need to know. So again, I think we ought to give the staff and members and the council here in the session a warm round of applause. A few announcements. I believe there are vouchers for for travel costs for coming to this meeting that are on the table outside in the narthex. If not, they are certainly downstairs in Geneva Hall. So if you want to get credit for donating your mileage to the presbytery, or you wish to be reimbursed, those options are both available. I do want to thank our moderator, Mike Gillespie, for his work, his humor, his always being one step ahead of me. And, right?
I don't know, maybe.
Sure. And I had one more thing to say. I do want to thank the staff of the presbytery. They do a lot of work behind the scenes. I get to pop up to the microphone and so forth, but they're often back making sure people are ready to give reports and so on. So I'm really appreciative that Brian Herron is on board with us now. Look forward to working with Clark. Sherry Elliott did a lot of work with our background papers, and we continually face new challenges as technology updates and makes it easier. It also means we can never do things the same way. Thanks to Steve Parker for all the work he puts into getting those slides together.
I think I told Paul that he could have the 10 minutes and I would take the 5 minutes, but he got it switched around, but I probably won't use all of my time. One of the interesting things in the last few weeks is I have traveled to Louisville to meet with other new presbyters, execs, people in this position, and then last week with the Synod executives as well. And one of the things I have discovered in that is most of them have said, oh, we very rarely ever get up and say anything at Presbytery and make a report. And I want to tell you why I think it's important for me. I have told Paul that I'd like to make at least some report at every Presbyterian meeting, and it has to do with the fact that we're in an evolving time. And I feel like it'll be important for me to share with you, even if it's just 5 minutes or 10 minutes at every Presbyterian meeting, about what it is that I'm doing, what we are doing, where I see things are going, because I really do believe this is an evolving process about where we're heading. One of the ways that I'm trying to live into that is that I have a website blog called Holy Breadcrumbs, and if you get the image, the idea of breadcrumbs is that you really can't see too far down the road. You have to follow one breadcrumb at a time. So every week on Thursday mornings, you could read the blog where I'm just working through the lectionary passage for the coming Sunday, as well as the life that we are living into, and just sort of teasing out where we are going. So what I would like to report is what I have been doing and anticipate doing in the coming months. All of your clerks of session should have received a letter where I offered to come and visit the church, whether it's with the whole congregation or the session or the pastors of the congregation. And what I'd like to report is that I've met with 14 of those congregations so far. There are 60 who have put me on the schedule for the next 4 months, and there are about 35 still to be scheduled. If you're not on the schedule yet and you'd like to have me come out, what I would like to say, especially because the Sundays are all full now through the end of June, and many of the congregations would prefer to have me out on a Sunday. So once I figure out my vacation plans for the summer, I've opened up now from August 19th on for congregations to also schedule me for Sundays, so into the fall at this point. I'm only 14 congregations into this, but I will tell you that I'm starting to hear some patterns and some common things already. And what I want to be able to do each time I come in front of you is to mirror back to you what I'm hearing from the congregations. But the two things that have been clear, not quite with every congregation I have met with, but with the majority of the congregations, one of those things is that pretty much every congregation, with the exception of one or two, have asked the question, how can you as a presbytery help us understand where we are going to be and how we're going to negotiate our way into the next 5 to 7 years. Now, a couple of those congregations said 6 to 12 months, but generally there's been this period of sometime in the next few years, we're going to need some help to understand how we negotiate where the church is going to be. And that has really been almost across the board in the meetings I have had. And the other question I am hearing in most congregations is, how can you help us understand how to connect with our neighborhood, our community, the new culture around us? So those are the two questions that are showing up over and over again. And that's helpful for me because as I think about the structure of the presbytery, working with PLC, the Presbyterian Leadership Commission, working with the teasing out the future, and that is very much my style. And one of the ways I do that is that I am less interested in getting agreement from everybody than I am in making sure I start the conversation. And that's kind of how I approach things. I do a lot of things by saying, gosh, I wonder what if. Have you thought about it this way? And it's not so much me saying, here's where I think we should be, and then wanting everybody to get on board with me. Especially at this stage, I don't think we're going to get to the future unless we really open up the dialogue and the conversation. And so a lot of my style is just to sort of tease things out a little bit, imagine a bit, and to see what you give back to me. There may be agreement, there may be disagreement, but as long as there's energy, I'm good with it, okay? As long as we're talking, we're thinking, we're imagining about the future, that's the process that I will use to help us imagine our future. So, that ends my report, moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate your contribution and your leadership. Now, I believe we're ready to wrap up the meeting and to enter into worship. And as a part of this time will be our blessing of our General Assembly Commissioners. So we might want to have them just be in a place where they can come forward when that time comes in the service. Let us now prepare for worship. After worship, the meeting will be adjourned until our next regularly called meeting in June.
Let us worship God. Our help is in the name of the Lord. Who made heaven and earth. From the rising of the sun to its setting. My name is great among the nations, says our God. Let us praise God. May God be praised.
During our psalm reading today, we will be singing the last line that is before you on the screen. So in between the various verses. So I invite you to join me in singing it a couple of
Vindicate me, O God, and defend my cause against an ungodly people. From those who are deceitful and unjust, deliver me. For you are the God in whom I take refuge. Why have you cast me off? Why must I walk about mournfully because of the oppression of the enemy? Oh, send out your light and your truth. Let them lead me. Let them bring me to your holy hill and your dwelling. cast down, O my soul, and why are you disquieted with me? Hope in God, for we shall praise God, our help and our God.
We are called by God to be the Church of Jesus Christ, a sign in the world today of what God intends for all humankind. Vicky, BJ, Eva, Katie, and Robert, the grace bestowed on you in baptism is sufficient for your calling because it is God's grace. God has called you to particular service as commissioners and delegates to the 223rd General Assembly, a gathering that demonstrates the bond of union, community, and mission among all congregations and the councils of the Presbyterian Church USA, with the goal that our lives, empowering us to live a life worthy of our calling. We thank you for leading Katie, BJ, Vicky, Eva, and Robert to this place, time and place. Establish them in your truth, guide them by your Holy Spirit, so that in your service they may grow in faith, hope, and love. And together, Almighty God, in Jesus Christ, you called disciples, and by the Holy Spirit, made them one church to serve you. Be with all members of the General Assembly. Help them to walk in new things you are doing in the world, and to respect the old things you keep and use. In their deliberation, bring about what is best for us and for all people. As they meet, let your Holy Spirit guide, so that the whole church may be joined in love and service to Jesus Christ, and be a clear sign of the reign of God. Amen. And so BJ, Eva, Vicky, Katie, and Robert, you are commissioned to service as commissioners and delegates to the 223rd General Assembly. Whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God through him. Amen. Thank you.
As we continue in worship, we face our closing prayer time together. And we've been together yesterday and today, some of you for all of the time, some of you for part of the time. As we lead into this closing prayer, just look around for a moment at the colleagues that we have been sharing time and space and thought and prayer and song with. For the many topics that we have covered, for the opinions we have heard and some we have kept safely inside ourselves and maybe haven't voiced. We are the people of God. It is time to pray one more time together. Take a deep breath. New every morning is your love, great God of light.
And all day long you are working for the good in the world.
Stir up in us the desire to serve you and live peacefully with our neighbors, great God of light.
And to devote each day to your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ the Lord. Amen.
And now as you go, whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God through Christ. May the hope of God be a light in a darkening world, and may we fill our communities with Christ's peace everlasting. By the power of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go in peace.